Good day. This is Lajot, and here is our research proposal with the title Effective Knowledge Acquisition by Means of Teaching Strategies of Physical Education Teachers of Private Schools in Dumaguete City amid pandemic. We choose this title for the reason that as we embrace the challenge of the new educational system, we wanted to realize or analyze the quality education amid pandemic, specifically in teaching of physical education that requires one to have repertoire of appropriate teaching strategies so as to enable the mastery of physical education concepts and skills. Our introduction starts with a question. What is new normal? Before knowing its meaning, let's first recall our life before the pandemic. Our life was normal before, like going to the mall with our family, eating in restaurants, going to school, meeting our friends and relatives, and traveling to places we love. These are just the things we did before which we really missed. But when the COVID-19 came, our lives have changed, even our educational system. We are all adjusting to this sudden change, but teachers and parents should work hand in hand to help learners continue their education. There should be constant communication between parents and teachers, and all we can do now is to live normally in this new normal and help our dear learners in their synchronous learning. Teaching in the new normal, especially online, must allow students to be engaged. The challenge to teachers is to make the instructional design meaningful, memorable, motivational, and measurable amidst the pandemic. The performance of students may be credited to the teacher's implementation of various teaching strategies in physical education, but the use of a variety of teaching strategies is given little attention by teachers in various schools. That is why the researcher of this study realized the need to analyze the new normal physical education teaching strategies used by the private school teachers in Dumaguete City. Our statement of the problem. This study seeks to analyze the acquired teaching strategies of physical education teachers in the private schools of Dumaguete City. Considering the results will be the basis for the training framework, and this study sought answer this question. First, what are the acquired teaching strategies of secondary physical education in the distant learning? Second, are these strategies used effectively in teaching physical education in the distant learning? Third, what are the factors that affect the physical education teacher's effectiveness of the used teaching strategies in the distant learning? Fourth, how can the effectiveness of the teaching strategies in the distant learning be enhanced? And the fifth one, what training design can be developed to enhance the teaching strategies of the secondary physical education teachers? So as you can see, the first, second, and third questions are the problem-based, while the fourth and the fifth one are the possible solution of the problem. The significance of the study. The study focused on illustrating the acquired various effective teaching strategies in the new normal education that can be used in the teaching of physical education. Moreover, the results of this study will be beneficial to the following. It will be beneficial to the learners. Why? Because this will help students to adjust and still learning something new amidst the crisis without feeling any pressure at all. It will also help to bypass their areas of weakness and to perform at the level at which they are capable. It will promote flexible thinking and teach students the importance of shifting their approaches to different tasks. It will also be beneficial to the PE teachers because the result of the study will help physical education teachers provide encouragement to think of ideas that will give proper guidance to the students. And this may also increase their competency as they embrace the new normal education. It will also be beneficial to the guidance staff. The result of this study may provide assessment of the teaching process, whether it is effective or not. And this may also encourage the guidance staff to think of other activities that will make the students as well as their teachers learn and enjoy the new normal education as much as possible. For the parents, the result of this study will help the parents of the learners feel secured because these are or there are alternative learning modality in the private schools of Dumaguete City that will help their children continue education and cope from this sudden change. And lastly, it will also be beneficial to the future researchers because the findings of this study will serve as a reference material and a guide for future researchers who wish to conduct the same study or any study related to acquisition of various effective teaching strategies.
Next is the scope and limitation. The scope of the study covers the acquired effective teaching strategies used by the physical education teachers of the private schools in Dumaguete City. Then, there are limitations in the study. First is the study only focused on the learning modality being used by the private schools of Dumaguete City, which is the blended learning or the synchronous learning. Second, in the scope and the limitation, the researchers specifically observes the Silliman University Junior High School, St. Paul's, Don Bosco, Setadini Foundations, and Cosca Junior High School. Is the theoretical framework. NOTAR in 2002 suggests that in order to fully utilize the technology and provide a quality education, a teacher must become a facilitator, collaborator, and a guide who makes a learner-centered instruction. NOTAR provide two concepts for the distant learning environment, which are constructivist approach and cognitive flexibility theory. First is the constructivist approach. Constructivism is the comprehension of new ideas from the prior knowledge as the foundation of the new concept. This makes the learner active in the construction of the ideas. Hoover in 1996 implies that the teacher creates a student learning environment where the teacher only guides the learner in the learning process. Interaction between the teacher and the students is the major component for this approach. It doesn't have to be a direct interaction of the instruction, but also through activities like groupings, open-ended questions, or overarching scenario. As these activities will be the guide and the building blocks of the students' independent learning for the distant learning. In the theoretical framework is the cognitive flexibility theory. Sparrow in 2003 addresses four main goals of cognitive flexibility theory. First, helping people to learn important but difficult subject matter. Since the start of the pandemic, everything shifted to synchronous and asynchronous instruction, which the teaching of the subject matter becomes harder. But adjusting to the new change and applying effective teaching strategy will help deeper understanding of the concept. Second, fostering adaptively flexible use of knowledge in real-world setting. This emphasizes the adaptive creative response of the teacher to the new situation at hand. It is where the teacher modifies the teaching strategy that will cater the needs of the students in the distant learning. Third, changing underlying ways of thinking. In this concept, teachers will try different methods and strategies which will result to trial and error. However, this will render the students' individual needs. Okay? Fourth, developing hypermedia learning environment to promote complex learning and flexible knowledge application. According to Sparrow, that a flexible medium can make a possible flexible cognitive. He added that the cognitive flexible theory is the basis for the design of computer learning environment, which provides nonlinear and multi-perspective. As life continues to change into more complex situations, we teachers must adapt to change and be more what we are before. In this study, these theories will serve as the foundation of the assessment of the chosen population of this study. Okay. The conceptual framework. According to Zhang and So in 2002, that physical education caters on physical activity and is clearly distinct from general knowledge-based subjects. Therefore, preparation is at most importance to render the needs of the students in the distant learning. Teachers' preparedness are tested at its fullest in this pandemic, adapting new instructional methods and modifying activities that will be suitable to the needs of the students in order to meet the necessary competencies. There are barriers that the physical education teacher must overcome as will be shown in the figure. These factors are the key to provide quality education for the distant learning once it is obtained. Therefore, in this study, we researchers will aim to determine the impact of these key factors affecting distant learning of the physical education teachers under the pandemic. This study aims to address the key issues of online learning system linked with established, appropriate, and realistic mechanisms for improving as well as expanding the learning and teaching of physical education for the distant learning. This is the conceptual framework. First is the curriculum. From the previous curriculum, there are flaws like, for example, minimum time in teaching the subject and the topics that can't be handled in time. Therefore, in the pandemic, the DepEd set a revised curriculum, which is the most essential learning competencies, or in other words, the MELC. Okay, according to the guidelines of the MELC in 2020 is that the MELCs will enable the department to focus instruction to the most essential and indispensable competencies that our learners must acquire as we anticipate challenges in the learning delivery. Second is the technology literacy. As the COVID-19 emerged and made a global pandemic, every school has no choice but to shift from traditional to online instruction. With no to little experience, teachers tried their best to provide good quality education to their students, even though it resulted from trial and error. Technology may seem difficult, but it has the most reliable and sustainable resources that can and will help the class. Furthermore, it offers efficient applications that helps teachers to teach effectively in the online setting. In Gardner in 2020 shared a best practice that is suitable for an online class, and that is to have a continuous communication with the student through emails and discussion thread in the portal. Next is the appropriate instruction. Teaching physical education requires more than knowledge of the theories but needs the expertise in the motor skills of the activity offered in the curriculum. This is where the expertise and creativity of the professional teacher comes into play. According to Hill in 2020, that there are three categories of learners in the distant learning. First is the visual learner who prefers learning language, pictures, charts, diagrams, videos, and other demonstrators. Second is the auditory learners who prefers verbal instruction and oral discussion. And lastly, the third is the kinesthetic learners who prefer hands-on activities. Okay? Considering this diversity of the students, different instruction methods must be applied in the virtual classroom. He'll suggest a practical teaching approach that is to identify how learners learn best and design instruction strategies to correspond with situations and learners' needs. In the distant learning, in every student's environment, they only have a limited space and materials for any physical activity. Therefore, the teacher's instruction must be suitable and to the student's limitation. And lastly is the student's assessment and performance expectations. Having no physical guidance from the teacher to assess them thoroughly of each skill, the student use devices that will help them connect to their teacher through platforms such as Google Meet and Zoom. Other applications help reinforce the students' need like YouTube, where they can watch videos as their reference for their performance. Online learning requires students to prepare all learning tools, assessment, organization, and at the same time maintain the motivation of independent learning. Okay? But Chu and Shen in 2013 suggest that strict continuous supervision by the teacher will be a must so that the student learning will be at best. These factors helps improve the physical education teachers teaching style, okay, or teaching strategies which is necessary to be enhanced in the distant learning.
Review of related literature. Teaching strategies. Effective teachers are first to admit that no matter how good a lesson is, our teaching strategies can always be improved. Oftentimes, it's we seek out our colleagues' opinions. Self-reflection is important because it's a process that makes you collect, record, and analyze everything that happened in the lesson so you can make improvements in your teaching strategies where necessary. A strategy is also a way of translating aim into practice. Second, application of teaching strategies. Various effective teaching strategies in the new normal education can be used in the teaching of physical education. Such strategies include, but are not limited to, the following: individualized instruction, simulation, peer teaching, task teaching, and teaching through questions. Third one, individualized instruction. Edmonds and Kennedy state that the individualized instruction strategy is a strategy which allows each learner to progress at his or her own pace and develops the ability to learn independently with minimum help from the teacher. This shows that individualized instruction can be used to help students become independent strategic learners. Simulation strategy. Simulation learning is a strategy teachers can use to not only teach course concepts, but also to provide students with opportunities to apply new skills, knowledge, and ideas in a practice setting that mirrors the real world. Instructional simulations have the potential to engage students in deep learning, even at home, with the help and guidance of their family members that empowers understanding, as opposed to surface learning that requires only memorization. Peer teaching strategy. Peer teaching is an instructional strategy to reach out to low-performing students in a positive way. It uses pairings of high-performing students under the supervision of a teacher. This shows that this strategy is student-centered and it emphasizes active teaching and learning as students work in teams virtually because of the pandemic. Whitman asserts that peer teaching strategies induces hands-on, heads-on, and hearts-on learning in students. Task teaching. Task sheets is an important aspect in the teaching of physical education since they make students to practice tasks and keep a record of learning activities. Metzler points out that task sheets are useful for pre-class as well as during class activities where each student can be given a task sheet and a list of activities. Students are then assessed by partners or the teacher virtually. And lastly, questioning strategy. According to Wells, questioning is a core function of both learning and teaching. It is a designer of curricular and instructional activities that facilitate interactions. New normal teachers are ought to cater or entertain queries from students even through calls, messenger, or virtually to be able to have an effective interaction with the learners. Questioning also promoted higher order thinking through explanation of high level questioning. Utilization of teaching strategies or effective teaching. According to Shidentuk, when one sets out to do anything, it is important to ensure that the atmosphere is conducive. In teaching physical education, it is important to ensure that all the requirements are available. In order to enable children to learn successfully, it is necessary to make sure that the atmosphere allows them to do that. The two assertions show that the teacher should set conducive environment for student learning. And these also show that to be able to create a positive and successful distance learning environment takes a lot of discipline and commitment.
Research methodology. First is the research design. This research will use a descriptive survey research method, which are the use of survey questionnaires and focus groups interviews for a chosen population. Through this method, we will be able to acquire the difficulties in the teacher's teaching method or strategies and the curriculum that was revised for the distant learning, which will serve as our independent variable to show how it affects the students' performance and their effectiveness in the class discussion, which also serves as the dependent variable. Research instrument at the start of the COVID pandemic, teachers are focused to take their classes online, which makes them unprepared and unequipped for this kind of education. Through an interview and group discussion, we can analyze the acquired teaching strategies of secondary physical education teachers of the private schools of the Magete City in order to create a training design that can enhance the teaching strategies of these teachers for the distant learning environment. The study will be conducted in Dumaguete City, which will concentrate on the private schools wherein the PE teachers respondents are from. It is comprised of 6 private schools: Silliman University Junior High School, St. Paul's, Don Bosco, Cetadini Foundation, and the Cosca Junior High School. Respondents that population consists of heads of schools and PE teachers. 6 school heads and 18 PE teachers will be purposively sampled, making up a total study sample of 24 participants. Having sought authority from relevant authorities, and researchers scheduled time for the 2 focus group discussions while following the health protocol. And also, we will also do um, uh, interview with other schools in here in Dumaguete City if we will also do a replication of the study. Okay. Data gathering procedure, which is that the researchers will request permission from the school principals, of course, and the school president to allow the researchers to conduct an interview to physical education teachers regarding the schools that affect their teaching methods on the distant learning. Before any interview to commence, the researchers will distribute to the teachers the consent for the assurance of privacy of any information gathered. Statistical treatment. Descriptive statistics will be used to provide basic information on the variables including learning curriculum, access to technology, use of video like Google Meet and Zoom, teaching strategies, and the students' performance level. In literature, we found studies employing regression techniques or models to study the relationship between the indicator of effectiveness on the teaching strategies used in its curriculum and grade students' performance level. Okay, and these are our references of our study. So thank you so much for listening, Sir Greg and the panels. Thank you so much. We are the MAPE teachers in graduate school, me, Shim Daryl Medez, and my partner, Angelica Sila. Thank you so much.